Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried and Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Thank you for joining us once again. I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors, Wasatch Recovery, Siegfried and Jensen, Veracity Networks, and iHill Institute. You guys are amazing for believing in me and helping us get this message out to so many people. We're trending on iTunes and also Google Play, which is awesome. And it's because of amazing guests that I've had on at the end. You know, to be totally honest, we've had some really amazing people, and today's going to be no different. And we're doing a little different format today. I've invited Christian Smith and his wife Kelly, who Christian's been on the show before, and we've also invited his daughter Sara Archuleta. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and so Christian, a few weeks ago, shared his story of overcoming addiction and what he went through a few weeks ago on the show, and then we had this idea of we would love to bring on his wife and his daughter to kind of get their perspective of, you know, the other side of addiction and how what they had to go through and during watching what you went through, Christian. Yeah. And so, but I'd like to start off with maybe a question. We're going to start with Sara. Just, you know, as you view your dad now, you know, I work with him here at Wasatch Recovery. He's one of our marketing directors. He's an amazing guy. He's doing a lot of good in his life now, and I think the world of him. I really do. I know you guys do too. But I also know there's a lot of raw feelings around of what you guys had to go through, and so I'm excited for our listeners to hear this side of it. So as you look at your dad now, Sara, what do you see now?
Well, looking at you now with your little smirk on your face, he's my best friend. Wasn't always that way, of course, but he's my best friend. He's my golf partner. We probably FaceTime or talk at least once a day. I don't know. It's definitely been a roller coaster ride, but I definitely wouldn't change it for anything because he's my hero. I'm a substance use disorder counselor. And he's the reason why I went into the field, is because I wanted to kind of bring to light to the community what we have and that it's possible, that there's hope to have a relationship. Even the hell that he put us through, it's possible.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Okay, Kelly, how about you? What do you, when you look at your husband now, what do you see?
You know, going through our journey, people always ask me why I stuck around. And most of that was because this person that I fell in love with, I was hoping I could eventually get that person back. And I can say now that I do have that person, and we are able to have a family relationship, that we can have our grandchildren and our children around and have him in our lives.
Yeah.
Prior to that, he had he continued down the road he was on, he would not be here with us or interact with our kids or grandkids.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, and again, we've kind of jumped way ahead here, but now we're going to get into kind of, you know, the hard part here. So what I'd like, Christian, is just share briefly, you know, for our listeners who maybe haven't heard your previous story, just kind of what you went through, how long were you, you know, in your addiction, and kind of just give us some background on that, if that's okay.
Okay. I'm 61 years old, born and raised in Utah, born in a really religious family, lots of siblings. There are 7 of us, and I'm in the middle. Life was pretty simple. We were socioeconomically middle class when growing up. We didn't have a lot, but didn't go without very much either. Didn't experience any substance abuse growing up other than a sample of clear alcohol once, and smoked the butt end of a cigarette as probably around 13. One of the things that's important that we'll talk about that I'm anxious to hear Kelle and Sara talk about is that growing up in our family, communication-wise, we were very, very passive-aggressive at times through sarcasm, which we still are, but it works now. But with my own immediate family growing up. And Kelle grew up in a family that was very assertive in their communication. And as you listen to the previous show, I call that nature of assertiveness in communication, I call it yelling. And so I go on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, come home, and I'm really wanting to experience intimacy, so I get married real quick. Kelle and I marry. I was engaged 7 days after I got home. Kelle and I marry, and that's when things started to go a little weird in my life because Kelly's form of communication was very assertive. It was in your face. And I can take assertive communication if I'm playing sport, because then it's okay for me to lash back or do something that makes me feel better. But when Kelle would come at me, it hurt. I'm in a motorcycle accident 3 years after we were married, and where I was introduced to opiates, Percodan, and that just created an avenue for me not to feel the pain and the stress of this harsh communication, which was appropriate. Growing up, I've said this before, growing up, assertive communication was much healthier than this passive-aggressive style of communication.
You just weren't used to it.
Yeah, it was just very foreign. I remember feeling like when Kelle would come at me, because I do stupid stuff, I'll be the...
That's an understatement.
Sarah's going to tell us the truth today.
Yeah,
I'm so glad she's on.
There's no holds barred on this podcast today.
Yeah.
But when Kelle would come at me, it just scared me. I wanted to crawl under her table, and so substances were introduced, and they worked for me for a time, and that would progressively get worse. Alcohol was introduced not too many years after opiates, because a good day for me was opiates combined with alcohol. And over the next, depending on who you ask, Kelle has, I say about 25 years. I think Kelle says a different number, but that would progressively get worse. From opiates to alcohol to gamble to inappropriate relationships sexually outside of the marriage, and ultimately to cocaine, to crack. And during those many, many years, I violated almost every value I ever had. And the only one I didn't violate was I never took anybody's life. But other than that, I think I violated every value I ever had. During that time, we raised 4 children. Sara represents the 4 kids. They would be here if their schedules would permit, and we had enough microphones.
Yeah.
So Sara is representing her 2 older brothers, Adam and Chad, and her little sister, Abbey. And so that's kind of where we are. That gives you is that good?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, again, I just wanted our listeners to know that how long were you in that again?
Kelle, how long was I in that, according to you?
25 years or more. It was a very long time.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where you're going through life and you know something isn't exactly right. Mm-hmm. But if you decide you're going to accept that something isn't right, then you got to do something about it. And addiction was very new to me. I had never been exposed in any way, shape, or form. No one around me, no alcohol, not even smoking, nothing. And so I didn't know what to do. All I knew is I had 4 little kids looking at me and wondering what had happened to Dad and where he was and why our life was absolutely falling apart. So again, I don't know that I can quantify a specific number because I put up my walls and pretended everything was okay. Yeah. And it wasn't. It was very not okay.
And I hear that a lot. It's pretty common to pretend nothing's wrong because it's your way to even like protect yourself from the feelings. You know, raising 4 kids, I mean, that's hard when you have a strong, healthy partner with you. But when you're doing it when someone's struggling, I mean, how is that? I mean, did you give us the feelings and the emotions you were going through as you have these 4 kids you're trying to keep in line and do the right thing and all that stuff?
It was definitely very challenging. I learned that when Chris would take things from the kids or he would disappoint them. He would not show up when he was supposed to be somewhere. Of course, in addiction, they're not dependable. He would say things, but he would never come through. So a lot of the crux of us finally getting to the point where something had to be done, and he was told to leave our home. We didn't live together for quite a while. When he started hurting my kids was when it was time to say I'm done, and that we needed a timeout, and that we needed to figure out life, because I wasn't going to let him hurt my kids. And so that's kind of the part that kind of sent us to the look around, and we've got to do something, because it was affecting their lives. And I often joke that I have 5 children, and because in some regards, there are things that that just come along with the addiction, that you do feel like you have another child, and always trying to stay one step ahead of them, or trying to figure out what's coming at you next, because you just never know what the next corner's gonna bring to you. It was the kids, it was, just trying to keep life, some sense of normalcy in our life, and try and keep a schedule running. And there were points that he didn't hold a job, so I was trying to work and support us, and just keep everything to pretend that we were okay. And again, pretend that we were okay, because we weren't okay.
Right. But
But we were trying to keep it together and live life the only way we knew how.
And she did a really good job at that. It wasn't known that, well, at least for Abbey, my younger sister, and I, it wasn't known that there was honestly a problem. Adam and Chad, I think, caught on pretty quickly. But for the longest time, Abbey and I thought this was our norm.
yeah.
That this was,
Isn't that word normalcy code? Looking back, not at the time, we didn't know. We did the best we could. You did the best you could. I was doing fine. You did the best you could at the
higher than
time.
a kite.
But when you use the word normalcy, isn't that now looking back code for enabling? Or you knew it was just a crap show.
Yeah.
But we will pretend all is well, and so we'll put this huge elephant that's right smack dab in the middle of our house. And we'll put a blanket over that and pretend it's not there.
And to that point, there were a lot of times when, I finally stopped trying to figure out how to do things to include him. In fact, if he would be laying on the couch or withdrawing, whatever that scenario was, it was almost a relief that I don't have to take him somewhere and then take care of him wherever we went. Because he did dumb things at places, and you're oftentimes embarrassed. And so when he was like, well, I just want to stay here and whatever. Okay, that's really good. So again, our lives got really out of balance, and we did things without him. And then all of a sudden he's sober, and he thinks he wants to come home and pretend like he's the head of this household. And I'm like, not on your life, because you've done nothing for so long. So again, you know, my perspective was, if he gets sober, everything will be better. Yeah. It just created different challenges. Yeah. Because we had learned to do our life so badly, codependently, whatever you want to say it is. We just did it around this person that wasn't functioning in our lives. Yeah.
She brings up something that I think we taught in the recovery community we may not touch on enough, and that is what happens when you find sobriety and recovery. How does that affect the dynamic? Because I did have this. We all had these expectations. She had hers that she just told you. Just get him sober and life will be good. I'm thinking, I'll get sober and then I'll come back. Then I want to come back and take on the role that I think is the role of
I'm the head of this house and watch me do this.
And she's going, the hell you say? That ain't ever going to happen.
You know, it's interesting. I'll say this a lot in with our clients, that I always tell our clients, your family will never trust you again. And they look at me and go, what? And I go, they will never trust you again. Doesn't mean they don't love you. And what's interesting is, because they don't trust you, you then end up resenting them. And then I'll say, but who trained them not to trust you? And then they're like, well, I did. Yeah. See, and that's kind of what was going on. Yeah. You didn't, even though he got sober, you didn't trust him. So therefore, he had no footing to come in and try to act as though everything's fine because you didn't have that.
And it took so long. I'm not saying that. I mean, right now, I completely trust him. But it took so long to get to the point that he would actually be to where he said he would, or that he would go pay something that he said he would and not do something else with the money, or that, I mean, there are so many times when, you know, some notice appears in the mail and you're like, oh, I thought we took care of that. And you go and like, what happened, Chris? Well, hey, ding dong. Reality is, you know exactly what happened. He did something else with the money, like whatever. And
this was in recovery, early recovery, right?
Yeah, it was hard.
That looking back now, that brings up another point.
Yeah.
Recovery is about pain management. And so here I am sober, trying to find recovery. I get a bill and it's painful, right? It brings up all this stuff. And the expectation that I would just turn this switch and be impeccably honest immediately, that might be an unrealistic expectation in the recovering process.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that.
It took a lot of patience and give and take and progress. It wasn't perfection. You hear all the time, you know, it's progress, not perfection. And it truly is as an addict starts to come back into life and figure out. And we had mountains and mountains of issues that we had to solve, you know, because our life was, when you say you don't have any money in the bank, and for a lot of people that's just, you know, may not have what I want to buy right now. There were days where literally for us, there was no money in the bank because he'd withdrawn everything. And so there were some really challenging times. I'm grateful for my parents who, despite my mess, and they didn't approve of my mess, they didn't approve of me staying in my mess, but I always knew I would have food, I would have a roof over my head, and my kids would be taken care of, because my parents and my family rallied around and did what I needed to survive.
I can't imagine how scary that would be. No money in the bank, 4 kids, like you said, all those things you got to do to take care of. And then you've got the 5th kid who is out just running amok, right? I mean, and you said earlier, you know, people would always ask you, why did you stick it out? I mean, did you have times where you're like, I'm done? Like, or did you fight through those feelings, or how did you deal with that?
I absolutely had time when I was done. I had divorce papers drawn up. I was ready to get them signed. At the time, Chris was in jail. The attorney's like, it's kind of really hard to serve divorce papers. And, you know, as you start looking at custody of kids, and I'm, you know, dividing up holidays and stuff like that. And I was frustrated because, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't send my kids to him for Christmas. That would be like, blah. Because, you know, I don't know that he ever bought a present for the kids for Christmas.
Not sure I have still.
Still, yeah, absolutely still.
I don't know if I have either.
So, you know, it's just kind of those role things. But I thought at that point, I'm going to have to give up my control, and he would have them half the time, and I can't do that to my kids. And the divorce papers are even still around somewhere in a file cabinet, I'm sure. But it did come to make some decisions again. But as I thought about it, and we are religious, prayed about it. It was just, it's not that I wasn't going to divorce him. It's just that right now I wasn't going to divorce him. Yeah. And you know, you get that little glimmer of that person is coming back. And like I said, I'm a very, very red personality. Chris is a very fun-loving, really balances out my life. And I need that in my life. So I wanted that person back. Yeah. And as you could see, just a little glimmer of he was coming back, then I'm like, maybe we can make this work. That's not to say we didn't go sometimes 10 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, and would repeat that. Yeah. But we tried. Holiday season is hard, and he even mentioned it's hard for him. I was reflecting back on a couple Christmases. One that I run to the jail to pick him up because he's out on a pass. Yeah. So I run up there, get him, bring him home for the day. but I also have to get him back. And it's just, because he only has X amount of hours and we're on this tight time frame, but I wanted to bring him home so the kids could see him. And even now that brings up a lot of anxiety for me. I remember also visiting one night in a horrible apartment he had rented. It was terrible. But again, he couldn't live at home because he couldn't function in our family dynamic.
Yeah.
And so the holiday season is a little bit challenging because of the things we experienced through some Christmases.
Yeah.
When he was out running and gunning. So I'm grateful that we have a different holiday experience now.
Right.
I'm grateful we're able to spend time with our children and grandchildren in a happy, positive, he engages, he spends time with us. And so it's a very different experience right now.
Yeah, I'm glad it's that way now. I mean, this is how I've always known Christian, is this guy here, you know. And his story is, I mean, he's lucky to be alive, to be honest. You know, I hear a lot from families where when they lose the loved one who's been an addict, they almost feel guilty that they feel relieved because they don't have to deal with the lies, the the promises that are never kept, that kind of thing. And so, I mean, really you're lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
And you talked about that in your, when we did your story earlier, but I hear that a lot as well.
Absolutely. And I think the kids and I often looked for closure. I would get a call almost every day from our older son who towards the end, he'd married and he wasn't living at home, and he'd go, "Did the police come last night?" And I'm like, "No, why would the police come?" And he goes, "Just to tell us they found Dad dead somewhere so we can be done with this."
Wow.
And that wasn't just Adam that felt that way. That was all of us.
The kids were just ready for closure. They were tired of, wondering if he was going to appear around the next corner or any of those kind of things. So it truly was. I tell people all the time, the 18 months he was in jail was the best 18 months of my life. Because
I hear that too a lot.
I didn't have to tend him anymore.
Yeah,
Someone else was responsible.
He knew where he was.
I didn't have to worry if it was, and he would call. I don't know what it is with addicts that, it was back in the day where you could see caller ID or calling on a house phone and, he would call and I wouldn't pick up and he'd call and call and call and call and call. Like, I'm going to pick up all of a sudden.
Hold on. I do remember on my perspective on those phone calls, like, it was kind of weird. I'm sober. I'm in jail sober, but I still have a sense of entitlement and, hey, that's my family and I love them. And now I'm sober, but I remember going, why isn't she picking up? Maybe she left the phone somewhere. So let me redial again.
Yeah.
About 8 times in a row and then still having resentment. Why didn't you pick up, man? Meanwhile, she's on the other end. That's the whole point of this podcast, Kelly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other end for me was it had been a bad day. I got all this crap in the mail of more bills I've got to deal with, more issues that I didn't know were out there. And I just couldn't deal with him too.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the capacity to talk. So it was a time when we all got a timeout and it was fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to be mean. It just
you're being honest.
We needed the break.
Yep.
So.
And I think anyone listening to this who has had a loved one, they would agree with that. They'd go, no, I get it. We had a break. We knew where they were. Didn't have to worry about them so much. So, no, thank you for sharing that. Sara, so as you're watching your mom struggle through this and you as a kid growing up, let's talk about how your perspective of this whole thing.
Put a timeline on it. Kelly just described the time I was in jail was from 2007 to 2006 to 2008. How old are you at this time, Sara?
I'm not good at math. Well, let's just say that I was born into your addiction. So the first time I saw you sober was when I was 16. And then Abbey's younger than me. So, I mean, it affected a vast majority of our adolescence and our upbringing.
Okay, say that again. You were 16?
I was 16 the first time I saw him sober.
I mean, that's a lot of years.
Yeah. It's a lot of years of thinking like, oh, it's normal for my dad's eyes to be rolling into the back of his head and he's cooking and has all the windows open. It's the dead of winter. Like, your dad doesn't do that? That's weird.
Right.
But no, I was the oddball in all of it.
Yeah. Wow.
But, I mean, like, as we go back a little bit further into like the experience of it, I'm 3 of 4, and probably looking at all 4 of us as a whole, probably Adam, the oldest, and I were probably more or less vocal about the hurt that was caused between him and all us. However, not to say that did not cause any harm to the other 2. Right. They just are more like mom and more on the sensitive side, and not so much of the vocals like I am and Adam are.
That's true.
We let
Chad
you know.
and Abbey, they internalized it and stuffed it.
Yeah.
Which to me, like, I don't know why you're so mad, Chad. Well, when it all came out, when the stuffing, when there was no more room to stuff, and he said, "I'm out of here." As a 17-year-old, if I remember right, Kelly, he goes, "I'm out of here," and went to live at Grandma's house. I can't stand you. And then I find recovery, and I'm going, Chad, I've been like sober for like 60 days. Why aren't you back in my life, man?
Yeah, why aren't things good?
What's so wrong?
True.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a year and a half. He tells Kelly and I the story. It was 4 years before he felt safe enough to re-engage in this relationship.
4 years.
Wow. Oh yeah. And so, I mean, looking back at things, it definitely, looking between Abbey and I guess you can say I felt the most inconvenienced by you, because your logic with the kids was, I'm not hurting them, I'm simply inconveniencing them.
Right.
So when I was in elementary school, I would get checked out from, being called down to the attendance office, and I'm thinking, oh yay, like, it's someone, we're gonna go do something fun.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was Dad calling to check me out to go fake a broken arm to go to the Instacare. And he picked me. I'm only guessing because I was always in a cast about 80% of my of my education, because I'm fragile. But
oh, you must be from Italy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah, a little Christmas story reference there.
Exactly. So he would check me out of school. We would go to the Instacare, and I remember exactly what Instacare is. It's the bottom of 90th there by the Dollar Theater, and he would play the card just right for him to get the narcotics. But again, the biggest thing was, we don't tell Mom. That was what made this more of like what I felt was a bonding experience, and kind of portrayed him as my best friend. And that continued for, once or twice, maybe at most 5 or 6 times.
And what a spot to put you in, though.
Right.
Don't tell Mom.
Don't tell Mom. But again, it was the kicker of, oh, this is us bonding. This is us feeling connected with one another. It's our secret.
Yeah.
It's what makes our relationship different than my mom and mine. And then fast forward to, what is a young girl that wants to make some extra money to go to the mall with? It's babysitting. So I would go and babysit my cousins or babysit the neighborhood kids. And I would get a call from him. And again, it would be calling the landline of the home, because there weren't really, cell phones were really just coming out was a thing. But it would be him calling to be like, hey, are you doing okay? Cool. I'm not feeling so good. Can you go to the medicine cabinet and read me off the labels on the bottles? And I'm probably like, I don't know, 9, somewhere around there. And, someone trying to pronounce some of those medications, you did the best you could, But if it was worth it to him, he would literally be there within minutes. And he would just say, bring me out 2 or 3 of them. And so I would. Again, I didn't know any better. I thought we were bonding, and I thought it was something that, again, was the norm. I didn't know any different, because that's what I was raised and born into. Yeah. Wow. And so that continued for some time, again, to the essence of, again, we didn't tell Mom. It was our secret. We didn't do any of that, whatever. And then I remember, like, another big moment for me was when you dropped me off at middle school, and that was the last time I saw you. You went on your bender and took Chad's debit card, and you dwindled his account to 0 as we all sat there and watched it when you went to Wendover and gambled away. And I don't know how long you were gone. I know it was quite some time. At least it felt like it was.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was 3 days.
Yeah, which felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
Because when you go on your benders, your phone's off, you don't talk to anyone, you literally disappear. And when we knew he was on benders, when Mom was taking us out of the house, she would take us to Grandma's house, or we would go stay the night of our aunts and uncles. I mean, we weren't home when these were going on, because I want to say you were afraid of when he would come home and what would happen. And I remember one day for us, you did come home, and your stuff was in the garage in a trash bag, and you just said to mom, I'm just going to get a couple things and go. And then you were gone. And for me, this is where it gets a little odd. And I didn't really put this together until like, honestly, probably within the last year. But I wasn't mad at my dad. I was mad at my mom because she was kicking my best friend out.
Yeah, you had the bond, even though it was an unhealthy bond.
Yeah.
But you're looking at it that way.
I was mad at her. I was upset that she was doing all this, and I felt the wrath of the pain that she was taking away my best friend. Again, I thought this was all normal, that, everyone's dad did this, whatever. Yeah. No. So I was very angry with her because she was taking my best friend away from me.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy how that's to me speaks to the manipulation abilities found in the disease of alcoholism and addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's this insane manipulation. You should never have been mad at your mom. You should have gone, Dad, what in the heck are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, and I want to just, she's 9 years old and you're asking her to go grab pills for you. Is there a part of you, Christian, where you're going, I know that this is so wrong. This is so bad. I mean, this is the evils of addiction. I mean, this is at its worst. You're asking a 9-year-old daughter who, again, she's doing it because she thinks she's bonding. But you, did you know this is messed up?
No, the answer is no. And as she's sharing this, and she shared it before, and it stings. I mean, here I am 12 years into being recovered, and that just stings because at the time I didn't have any of those remorseful. I didn't have that gut thing that said, what you're doing, Christian, is wrong. I think I was so far past
you were past that
I was just in this place of I'm not going to feel any more pain, and here might be an easy way. Because most of the time back in that day, there was way too many opiates out on in the medicine chest
everywhere.
Of people.
Yeah. And again, I think it comes back to you didn't think you were hurting, you were inconveniencing us.
Yeah.
Because same thing, like when you would give us an allowance, we would go to the mall with our friends, pull out my wallet, and there's no money. Instead, it's a piece of paper that says, I owe you.
Those are good. Those were good. I was good for that.
Might want to hold on to that one.
Yeah. Right? And trust me, we still do. We have them. We still do.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my.
And it didn't just happen once or twice. It was pretty consistent for a while that we had more papers that had IOUs on there than actual money in our wallet.
So we chuckle. Those of you who are listening, we're chuckling a little bit, only because we have figured out the formula for humor, and it is crisis plus time. We have not always chuckled about this. That was horrific, and it's a black day and a black part of our lives. But so don't be offended when we chuckle a little bit some of these silly things we've worked.
Yeah, it's been some time.
Yeah.
But again, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
What you're trying to keep going.
It was just, again, this whole idea of what normal was for us was this idea for myself. And I want to say more for my sister. I don't want to speak on her behalf, but I can only imagine her being younger than me, same thing.
Yeah.
Adam and Chad, again, being older, I definitely know Chad, like they said, he moved out when he was 17 to live with my grandparents. He would make an effort to come and visit. The only time we would really come and go see him was when we would go to my grandparents' house. Mm-hmm. And then Adam served, like they said, we're religious. So he served an LDS mission in Korea for 2 years. And he was gone for a little bit towards the end there when things started to get a little crazy. Yeah. And then he did come back, I would say, right in the whole hell of it. I think he came back just in time to kind of be there for what was going to be the near end of it. But I grew up going to see my dad in the jail. Salt Lake County Jail and Davis County Jail. It's sad to say that I actually have a favorite jail to visit, which is Davis
crazy.
County. Yeah.
Seriously, to hear you say that, that's crazy.
Salt Lake County, the guards just weren't nice. But there were times where Mom couldn't take us, and Chad, there was no way he was ever going to do it. So Adam would try, and they wouldn't let him through because he wasn't our guardian.
Okay.
But we would make the drive up to Davis County, and he would try and do that for my sister and I because, again, we're still in this place of we're not entirely sure what's going on. We know that Dad's in jail for, fraud and forgery and the usual of things. But nonetheless, We didn't know any better, and our siblings, our aunts, were trying to make it as best as we could for my sister and I. Again, Adam and Chad, they're at their wits' end with it, and they're on her side. Abbey and I are just like, what do we do?
Yeah.
But definitely grew up seeing you in the jail for 18 months. I remember the first time we ever went and saw you. It was a surprise. Mom surprised us with it. And it was a surprise. It was a good surprise. But, I mean, we weren't used to that atmosphere of things. That's not how we were raised.
How old were you when you went?
I was probably 10 or 11. I was in middle school.
Okay.
Because you got out.
So what is that, 5th grade?
Well, maybe you.
You may have been a little.
I was
older.
thinking you were closer to 13 or 14.
I was in 9th grade when you got out of jail. Because I remember Mom picked you up. Or 8th grade, one of the two, because Mom picked you up and brought you to the school, and Abbey was still in elementary school. So there was that gap between us. Because you came and got me, and then we went and picked up Abbey from elementary school. And I remember, like, that was a huge day, like, seeing him, like, they let him come into my classroom and get him, and it was just, like, this big reunion of things.
There's
And
my dad just fresh out of jail.
Yeah, right?
Everyone give him a high five.
But see, that's the other thing. I don't think I didn't let people really in on
didn't
what
talk
was going
about
in.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, when people at church would be like, "Oh, where's your dad today? He's on a business trip. He's not feeling too well. He's at home." I didn't want people to do that because I already was getting, the opportunities where it's like, we're not going to let my friends come to my house and play with me. I had to go to their house.
Yeah.
Because they knew something was off with him.
Yeah.
But
Looking back, this is your show, Todd, so I don't want to mess it up.
You're good.
But this elephant that we all kept covered,
yeah.
what would we do differently? Would we do anything differently, or is it just the way it played out?
I mean, I think then, this is like my education side playing into things. It's just, it wasn't the societal thing. It wasn't we're talking 11 years ago where addiction and alcoholism is like the scarlet red letter on your chest.
Yeah.
And even though I wasn't the one that was suffering from it, I definitely was feeling the impact, but you didn't want people to know that because you were the oddball out.
Yeah.
You were the weird or the odd one in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
There wasn't enough education, or it really was not talked about. It very much
Times have
was
changed, but you're
this
right. Yeah.
hidden. And now with so much push in the community and just everything around to really educate and get the word out and let people know to not suffer and to figure out what's causing the pain, that you have to medicate that.
Yeah.
When we were there, it was not. It really was.
we were looked at differently. We didn't I remember
Yeah.
church atmosphere was very different for us in that way of things because a lot of the times I would sit there standing next to my mom and, someone would come up and say, why are you still there? And her response always was, until you walk a mile in my shoes, you don't know what we're going through.
Exactly.
That really did come home to me in that you really can't judge anyone. You have no idea what it's like until you've been there. And everyone handles things differently. There have been a lot of women who have approached me and they're like, I just can't do it anymore. And that's okay. There's nothing that says you have to stay or you have to go. And my only advice is don't let someone tell you what you have to do. Make your own decisions because you have to live with them.
Sure.
You can't say, oh, but Sally Sue down the road told me to leave, and years later regret that decision. So figure out deep down inside what you can live with doing.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different path, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to do for you is okay.
Yeah. Well, I think you said it so beautifully before. You knew Christian who he really was, and he's being someone he's not. So there was that hope going. It's there. I know it's there. Plus you have 4 kids. Plus you're trying to do things on your own. And then people are like, yeah, just leave the guy. Like you said, walk in your shoes.
Yeah,
and
that was
then you
always
would
her
understand.
response.
Yeah.
Always, until you walked a mile in my shoes,
sure.
you don't know what we're going through.
Yeah.
And it was, I'd like to give those the benefit of the doubt that it was more coming from a place of like empathy and sympathy. Right. It wasn't that way in those moments of things.
Yeah.
But like as we continued through it all, I mean, again, I didn't really put out there to the world. And I remember the like first year, I think you hit, you know, your 365 days of sobriety, and it was social media was a thing. And I put it on social media that, oh, my dad is 1 year sober, and kind of started the stage for what my life was growing up. And I had never had so many people reach out and be like, I had no idea this was what you were going through. And it's like, yeah, we didn't really talk about it. It's not something we showed off. There's like that, we have a saying on your wall in your guys' house that from the outside we're a nice normal family, but the inside we're a bunch of nutcases or something.
Didn't you purchase that little plaque
I did.
and give it to us?
It's true. It's true. But as things, you know, again, progressed to the point where he did get out of jail, he was doing great for quite some time. And then it was the bender of all benders again. And for me, that's when it's shifted to now I'm angry at you because you let me down after what was supposed to be the last time. And then I became more on the side of what's going on and supporting my mom. And for me, that's when you broke into the house. And I wasn't even there. It was the phone. I called mom and I could hear the panic and I could hear her scared as to what's going on. And I ran down and said, so dad's at my house. And I remember, you know, aunt and uncle getting on the other phone, calling the police to get them there because they knew more of what was going on. All I know is that my mom was scared that you were there. Wow. And that was kind of like the big shift for me. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, I don't know the extent of what happened that night other than you had to have been on something.
There's no question I was under mood and mind altering substances.
I mean, you broke a window. Mom was running out of the house.
By the way, just a heads up for everybody there. If you break the window to the house of which you have ownership in, that is against the law. That is called malicious mischief.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
so,
go ahead. No,
I was
fine.
going to say, because I know when you finally had that moment where you're like, I'm done, when that guy said, I love you, you had taken some money that you were supposed to, if I remember right, you were supposed to do something with that or something.
That was Chad. That was the experience you're talking about happened to be related to Sarah and a vehicle that she had.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring that up.
Tell us that.
Yeah. So at this
is
point,
the last.
Yeah, this was the last like
we
big
didn't know
events.
it, but this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you are kicked out. And it was, I think we were going into summertime because I remember we were on the lake and with Adam and everyone, and you got a call that dad's gone, whatever, and we didn't really talk about it. Next thing we know, you're checked into a treatment center, and mom checked so I have two older brothers, right? But mom was working full time as much as she could because he's not in the picture right now. This is to the point where we're saying has the police come and told us our dad was dead? Just so we could be put at ease. Did I ever really wish that?
Right.
No. But again, we were scared because now we just had this huge event just happen.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. So instead it was the opposite. Mom called us and after school, we picked up an after school job just so that we could not be home more long in that essence of things. And she picked us up and we started driving towards Little Cottonwood Canyon. And I'm thinking, oh, we're going to the mall, but the mall's that way. Like the mall's the other way. And we get up there and there's this driveway strip and it has a gate and on the gate is a sign of a treatment center. And I turned to my mom. I was like, I'm not going in there. I'm not doing this. I knew exactly what was going on. Yeah. Abby's crying in the back seat and we pull into the parking. My mom's like, I need you to go in there. I need you to come with me. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to see him. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't the intent that we were going to have a family process that night. I think it was mom just wanting us to see our dad.
Yeah.
However, we go in there and I remember as if it like happened yesterday. We walk in there, we go down the stairs. Clients were on one side of the room and family members were on the other side of the room with the process in the middle. We sat on the very back row, mom, myself, and Abbey with my head down because I really just didn't want to be there. I'm so angry at this whole thing. Yeah. And the process finishes up and the therapist goes, Christian, are those your daughters back there? Let's get your daughters up there. And I don't know. You say it's like a trampoline.
You shot out of there like a cannonball coming out of a cannon. You were ready for
I
war.
looked to my mom and I just like stood right up and I went up there and I sat knee to knee with him, my hands in his.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that my mom heard about all of this bonding
Oh, wow.
of the
Yeah.
stealing the medications for him. That again, that didn't come to light until that exact moment.
Wow. How did that hit you hearing this for the first time?
You know, it's just, again, another layer of
yeah.
the deceit and the dishonesty and, you know, just one more thing.
Yeah.
At some point you're so beaten down that it's like, just keep piling it on.
Yeah.
Just keep piling it on.
It's almost like I'm not surprised to hear
Yeah.
this at this point.
At this
Yeah.
point, it's like, what else? What else is out there?
Yeah.
And it was like,
Sarah, speak about that. My memory was there would be one more relapse,
yeah, there is.
That was the
but
tension.
that little process was a game changer for me, and I don't know if it was for you. My memory of that was the counselor said, "Sarah, tell your dad how it felt."
Yes, that's exactly what he said. And as we kind of went into that, there was no pause. It just was like word vomit, everything that was there.
Yeah.
And I remember he let me just talk and then I stopped. And then before he could even let dad speak, he asked the clients, you know, what's coming up for you? Name one emotion. And a lot of their remarks were, again, deceit. They also had this idea of fun-loving Christian who can never do anything wrong.
Right, yeah,
I mean, like
yeah.
the mentality growing up, even though dad was higher than a kite, was mom said no, but dad always said yes. So when I was able to put out there everything, and again, he's putting on this really good picture of I'm not the bad guy here. They all are. My family is
Yeah.
the enemies here.
Yeah.
And I put it all out there. Before he can even speak, those were some of the words that were coming from the clients.
Mm.
And then he was able to kind of offer up. And I did feel very genuine apologeticness from you. Like I really felt like that was you really understanding that it wasn't inconvenience at that point. It was full hurt.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I'll never
Yeah.
forget that moment as long as I can remember. That was the moment when I realized, oh my gosh, I was more than inconveniencing them. I hurt them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that stings to this moment, you know.
That was the biggest, I think, thing for me to actually begin moving forward with that. Abbey was there too. She sat in the back and just cried. She wasn't ready at that point, I don't think,
Yeah.
more so. But again, after that family night, we never missed one after that. In fact, it was something we looked forward to. We were excited to go see our dad and begin that.
Yeah.
He completes the residential stay, comes home, and again, we broke the rules while you were in treatment. When you would go to church, you missed my first high school dance. So I did put on my dress, and I knew what church he went to because he just so happened to be in the ward of a family member. And so I knew the time of the church, and I did put on my, high
Right.
school homecoming dress, and I went
So
to
he could
church
see
and
it,
so
yeah.
he could see it. And so there
Wow.
were those things that he did miss out on, a lot of those big events. That, as a high school kid and girl, those were things that I wanted my parents to be a part of.
Wow.
So he gets out and he comes home, and this is kind of where I think mom needs to share with everyone the 4 boundaries that she left for you to come home.
What were those 4 boundaries, Kelly? On a napkin.
Get a job. A driver's license, because your driver's license had been suspended.
Mm-hmm.
No use, no drugs, and go to church.
Yes.
That was it. And you wrote them on a napkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said, dude, if you're coming home,
Yep.
This is what you've
This
got to
is
do.
it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that napkin got laminated, didn't
And
it?
yeah.
We still have it.
And it didn't last very long because he got under some stress.
Mm-hmm.
And as he talks about it, it's the monkeys in his brain held a little
Meeting.
conference about where he should go,
Mm-hmm.
where he was supposed to go, or down to Pioneer Park.
Mm.
And he
Yeah.
went to Pioneer Park and then was gone for the longest he'd ever been gone.
It was a very long
And
time.
again, the addiction, the recovery community is very tight. And I had people that would reach out and
Yeah.
go, "Do you have any pictures?" And we'll go walk around downtown Salt Lake. Everyone was worried about him.
Mm-hmm.
And because he really had just dropped off the face of the earth. We really did not expect him to come home.
Mm-mm.
But he did resurface after about 10 days. But again, my appreciation to those that loved him enough to look for him and watch out for him.
Yeah.
So
That was probably the biggest thing, is because, again, growing up, we were set up to have all this like faith that you were stopping, that you were doing the right thing. And then again, it's, you know, same story, next chapter, same story, 100th verse.
Just another relapse.
And so I remember that day, because you were supposed to get your license reinstated. Mom, you know, wrote you a check, and then
It was cash, by the way.
Oh, cash.
Yeah.
And you went down to the court to get the license, the DMV. They said, you got to go get, you know, we don't need your money. We just need something from the judge. And that set you off to the point where you couldn't manage. And like they said, the committee was talking very loud. And the biggest thing was, you had my car. You took my car, not with permission. You took it with permission. And then you were gone. And
10 days.
That, you had my car. I know that they found the car. Adam and Mom found the car, and a bill of sale was written on the back of a napkin, for not anything worth it. And what was frustrating is because I'd worked so hard, you know, in my after school job.
Yeah.
And the deal growing up was you paid half, and Mom and Dad would meet you with half with whatever vehicle. So it was something that I worked really hard for. And it was, again, he sold it for drug money. Right. And that was, I think, honestly, one of the biggest things that I was like, I'm not going to trust you as much as I did once before. And that, for me, took a huge step back in the process of things, which I was pretty trusting at the beginning. I was like, yeah, that's fine. That's great. Because again, there's the formula for trust, time plus consistency. And, you know, 90 days, that's a pretty big amount of time for you. And you were showing up, but you showed up in treatment. You didn't show up outside of treatment.
Yeah.
And then that's when I just was very much on edge about what was going to go forth through. And then you did go back for 30 days. And since then, it's been different, to say the least.
How,
I'll interrupt. There are times now when I can see a stress rising.
Yeah.
And a little part of me goes back to those places, and I have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Of
Understandably.
Can he manage? Is it going to be okay? Is he going to go back down that road? And we're 12 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a while into it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't go away. And I can see the look on his face. I can just see the change in his demeanor as stress starts coming into his life. And again, I'm this red personality. I want to fix it. I want to control it. I'm like, well, what can I do? What can we do? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do this? Again, it's hard for me to let go of that even now. It's hard for me to not worry about him.
Well, it's not just you, it's us too. Like, we know your red flags. Like, we know when the phone's off. We know when the phone was off, you were on a bender. Now when the phone's off, it's because you're golfing. But then again, I know who you're golfing with, so I just call them. You know, like, there's certain things that to this day, it's just more of that PTSD coming back up from what happened.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Todd started this program by saying you have told clients that you'll never get trust back from your family. And while you're saying that, I'm going, I've already had my family tell me I've got impeccable. Kelle even said it after that, 100%. But as we visit right now, you just demonstrated that the disease robs, it's darn impossible to get 100% of trust because of PTSD, because of past experience.
Well, I haven't had a drink in 32 years. And when I go to my brother-in-law's house for a family party thing, my wife worries I'm going to have a drink. It's been 32 years. And I look at her, and I used to get really upset. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But guess who trained her not to trust me?
Right.
Around that stuff? Me.
Yeah.
And so when I take accountability for that, and I go, I get why you worry about it. Then there's no fight. So, I totally get where you're coming from.
That anxiety is real, and it's just... Not that I don't know. It's kind of this double-edged sword, because I don't know that I really think he'll do it.
Right.
But it's always in the back of my mind, and he hasn't demonstrated. But stress is a big thing for him, and he doesn't deal well, and
he wears it on his sleeve.
He
too.
does, and our older son Adam is, both of our sons actually, and Chad are really good to help him work through a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, they'll start talking to him and kind of figure out that it isn't really what he's making it out to be, and kind of help alleviate that when I just go into fix-it mode. So the boys are really, really good to just go, Dad, kind of look at this, in a different way.
Yeah.
And then, if this happens, well, what, what's really going to be the worst it can be, or those kind of things.
Yeah, the family, recovery has helped the entire family, because I have now this, what used to be the major source of my stress was the dynamics within the family. Now has become the major source of my support, but we don't do it blind anymore.
Right.
I go to this place of catastrophizing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I owe that guy $80. The world's going to end, and the team of my tribe, which consists mostly of my family, it's really not, it's not a total catastrophe, Dad. You're actually going to be okay. And this is just life. And now we're learning to live life on life's terms. Yeah. Adulting is what I think you've called it before.
It's not all or nothing.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. Just take a deep breath, right? Yeah. I mean, if you look at what you went through, raising 4 kids, having no money in the bank, it chokes me up to even think about it. You survived all of that. And you too, Sarah, going through what you did, and all your kids. Wow. I'm blown away by it, honestly, to hear what you guys have gone through. And that here you are. You guys are sitting here together. What a beautiful conversation we're having here. A very raw and real conversation. But man,
I think our family saying is we don't wish the disease of addiction upon anyone. However, for our family, it's been like the greatest blessing, because it not only brought like our dad back into our lives, but it brought like our whole family closer together.
For sure. Yeah. I love that, Sarah.
My kids definitely will they rallied around me. They supported me. They loved me. We figured that we were in this battle just together. So we became very, very close.
Yeah.
All of my kids will tell you that their dad's their biggest hero. They never talk to anyone or have conversations about addiction that they don't write his number down, say, hey, call my dad. He will help you.
Yeah.
So there's no one that they admire more than their dad. And he truly is the bright spot in our lives.
Yeah.
It's not to say it hasn't been extremely hard. But it has been a wonderful blessing, and our family is so very close because of those things that we've gone through and experienced, and it really has been an interesting journey, and we wouldn't trade it. Christian does force us to be more open about the challenges in our life than we may be on our own.
For sure,
typically, we don't necessarily talk about it unless he drags us along to have a conversation.
You're speaking about things like this, but Kelly, we don't live in shame anymore.
No,
we don't live in this place of shame.
We just also don't, vocally go and say, "Oh, hey, our dad's a recovering addict. What do you want to know about it?"
Yeah.
But we, if the opportunity presents itself, we are not afraid to share our experience or to try and help someone.
Yeah, a couple thoughts that were ringing in my head when you just said what you said, Kelly, is life happens for us. I really do believe that. As hard as it is at times. Looking back, like you said, you wouldn't change it, because look how strong and close, like you were saying, Sarah, how beautifully close you guys are because of it. And the other thing that comes to my mind is this statement, the greater the darkness, the greater the light. And you guys went down that dark abyss together, and you're coming out of it together as well, around this, and the light that's starting to shine. When you talk about, hey, here's my dad's number, talking, he'll help you. I mean, that's how I know Christian. This guy, I mean, he'll help anyone. He'll drop anything at any time to go help anyone, anywhere. And that's what I know of him. And it's authentic and it's real.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know any of this other stuff, but to see how passionate he is about helping other people, it's really beautiful to watch.
It is. It's definitely like for all of us to see that too, because I mean, there's been where, you know, when back in the day when you owned the treatment center, I remember was at New Year's Eve, every single one of us, we were at the treatment center having dinner with the clients. I mean, you went into talk about trust. you took everything, you know, you took a lot of those things and robbed us of those things. However, you went into business with 2 sons, which was a huge financial investment to things. And yet, you know, that paid off for you. You have 9 grandchildren who I don't think any of us would not trust you with them, you know, and that's a big deal.
Wow.
And I think as we wrap this up a little bit, I think with way more emotion than I've had in a long time, the gifts of recovery and the hope that we try to offer this podcast and the listeners is that it can be pretty crappy. I mean, inexplicably crappy. And yet here I am sitting with my wife of 40 years and my daughter who's a little nuts, and I absolutely love her, and she is my best friend, as are all of her siblings. There's not days go by. One of my favorite things is probably 5 out of 7 days of the week I get a FaceTime early in the morning from Sarah and Brixton, grandson Brixton.
Yeah.
The gifts of this recovery,
Yeah.
if we implement the stuff that people like Todd give us and we really do the work, the gifts are sitting in front of me now, and the grandchildren and the children. Life's not perfect. Kelly's still a red personality, and you guys look at red personality. It's all about control freaks. But she's not easy, and I'm not easy, and yet we have a commitment, and we go forward, and we deal with struggles, knowing that it's going to be okay. And I hope everybody that's listening, the pain that we've gone through, it's so much better now, and all of my kids would be here. All of our kids would be here if they could be,
for sure,
to echo the same thing.
Yeah, beautifully said. Well, I have another question for each one of you, if that's okay. I'll start with you, Sarah.
Sure.
If there's someone listening to your voice right now who's struggling, maybe they're another kid whose dad or mom is off the rails,
Right.
going through this. What's something you could tell them that might help them in this moment? I know that's a big question.
That is a very big question because, you know, as a kid, you feel like you can't do anything. That this happened to you and you're just stuck on the roller coaster ride of it. So my biggest thing is there's a lot more support now out there than there was when I was going through this.
Mm-hmm.
And support could be like your teachers, your even your parents, your friends' parents. But the biggest thing is to know that you're not alone. Like, know that you're not the only one that is struggling with having a parent that suffers by addiction or mental health. And know that it doesn't have to line that future up for you. I mean, he experienced addiction. However, how the 4 of us kind of turned out not going down that same road is it's honestly kind of a miracle that none of us kind of, for lack of better words,
I was going to say that.
followed your footsteps. Yeah.
Yeah.
But know that doesn't have to be set up to be your future. That you do have a power in making that difference if you're willing to be vulnerable and share with someone that I'm hurting and this is why.
Wow. Beautifully said. I thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Mom, what would you tell someone who's listening to this who's maybe married to a man who's going through the same thing that Christian put you through? What could you tell them right now?
I think, as I said earlier, to just not let anyone make decisions or choices for you.
Okay.
You're going to have to live with whatever your choices are.
Mm-hmm.
And you know in your heart what you want and what you personally can do. It is a wild journey, but it's a good journey. And as Sarah mentioned, just take advantages of the resources that are available now.
Right.
There are so many things that can help. A lot of family support, a lot of places that you can find others who are going through the same thing you are, and they can offer different suggestions. It really, I have found that people who have not had an addict in their life struggle to understand what it's like. And so if someone is experiencing that, comparing notes and things that have worked for them and trying them to work for you. And it definitely is different to have a spouse as an addict compared to a child as an addict.
Sure.
In those relationships.
Yeah.
So it is, again, as Chris mentioned, our hope is that anyone who's listening will find hope and hang in there and try to enjoy whatever you can of the experience that you're going through.
Yeah, thank you. Again, beautifully said. Thank you. Chris, I'm going to ask you, what would you tell someone right now who is struggling with addiction, wrestling with it, they're putting their own family through stuff? What would you tell them? Because there was a few things along your path that kind of woke you up, so to speak. What would you say to them right now?
I just read, for the first time, I've been in your office before, and I just read something that sticks out to me. I alone can do it, but I can't do it alone. I have the power within me to change, but I cannot do it by myself. And as I look at my wife and daughter, who represents all of our children, with their help, we did it. We overcame. We did it. And those that are out there struggling, you can't do this alone, nor should you. It's about connection, and find the connections in your life, whether that's a spouse, whether that's a child, a friend, whatever it is. There are connections out there, and the addiction lives in isolation. It lives in the dark, in silence, and the recovery part of that does not. It needs light. It needs connection. It needs verbalization, and find those people in your life and get brutally honest, painfully honest. Kelly Holden boundaries of, hey, I'm not doing this anymore, you got to go. Those were instrumental. Those boundaries were huge in helping me be forced to look at a solution that's better than the one I was currently using. So I love what you do, Todd. We love what you do. We love recovery, and we love change. And we know it's hard, but we know by our own experience it can be done.
Yeah.
We believe in second chances.
I like it.
Yeah, we all need a lot of them, don't we? Wow. Well, that was beautifully said, Chris. And all of you, thank you so much for taking some time to share your story. It's so great to hear from both of you, to hear your side of things. And I think so many people are going to benefit from this. And I can't thank you enough. I've been emotional through this whole thing. I think the world of your dad. I know a lot of your extended family as well. I love them as well. And I can add you to that list now, that I care about you guys. And I'm so grateful that you guys have made it through this. And I'm glad that you're in the industry now and helping other people on your end of things. And boy, what a perspective you get to share.
Yeah. I love it. Ever since that moment with that therapist is more or less the reason why I want to be in this world with him, because that therapist led the way for the honesty to begin, to be there and to get vulnerable with the whole process. Yeah. And it's, you said we got through this. I think we're still getting through this. Yeah. It's going to be a lifelong progress. But it's a total ride worth being on. Yeah.
Great perspective. That's your daughter speaking right there. You stole her car and made her do all these things, and look at her now. Yeah. It's amazing. No, and it just proves that we can go through tough things and we can make it through it. Yes. You're right. We can't do it alone. I know faith is a big part of your guys' foundation, and I appreciate you guys brought that up along the way. And if you don't have a higher power, it could just be love. I mean, connecting, love.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, you don't have a higher power, why can't it be that?
Absolutely.
Right? So I love you guys.
Thanks.
Guys, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank
This
you.
has been beautiful. Anyone out there who's struggling that needs treatment or needs help, Christian, what's your number that they could reach out and maybe get help from Wasatch, or we can refer them to someone else if we need to?
801-870-1379. I love what we do at Wasatch. I believe in it, but there are places that maybe would be better suited for somebody. I just want people to find
Yeah.
hope and healing, and I'll do whatever we have to do to get that done.
Yeah, love it. Well, reach out to Christian if you know of someone who's struggling. We would reach out to them. We'll do whatever we can to help them. I'm thankful for this opportunity. I want to thank our sponsors. Thank you for making this all possible. And thanks for listening, everybody. You guys are amazing. I can't believe where we're at and how many people are actually listening to this.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. But again, it's because of these vulnerable, beautiful, authentic stories. And so thanks once again, guys.
Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
There you go, folks. Until next time, love you guys.